What do you think of when you think of fear? Running, paralysis, freezing? And have you ever considered that unaddressed fears can, so to speak, freeze your fertility and block your ability to conceiving naturally? Hello lovelies, and welcome to another one of my videos in which we'll be talking about how unaddressed fears might actually be blocking your fertility right now. This is the third and last video in a series on emotions that might be blocking your fertility, and the previous ones were grief and anger, so make sure to check those out if you haven't seen those yet. These videos are all part of one big interview that I did with Helen Sutar, and she is a strategist that also works with my patients to look at any fertility blocks around emotions or practical blocks that my patients are running into. So definitely check out those previous videos if you haven't seen it, and keep watching if you're curious how unaddressed fears might be blocking your fertility right now, because trust me, it happens to a lot of my patients.
Fear is a really interesting one, and obviously bear in mind that all of these are interconnected. So this isn't a case of where we want you to look at your grief and handle that, and then once you've done that you can move on to fear. All of these are going to be interlocking in one way or another.
Yes.
So often a really common form of fear, which you all have heard of a lot, is a fear of the same situations repeating. So if you have had a previous miscarriage, you get pregnant again, there's a fear you're going to have a repeat miscarriage. If you have had a difficult relationship with your healthcare providers, you might worry that the same will happen again in a future pregnancy. So those are quite common ones. The ones that we don't hear talked about so often is the fear of the loss of the identity of the parents. So one I've dealt with quite a bit with your patients, Fleur, is women in particular who come and say, I really want to have a family, I really want to become a mother, but I'm worried that I will cease to exist in some way when that happens, because the things that I love to do aren't compatible.
And these are often the patients that are in their early 40s, right? So they feel like they need to get started if they want to get started at all, but they have careers that they love. And I think those women especially, because they haven't become mother early on, they've grown really attached to their routines and yeah, their work. And they're often told as well, oh, once you have a baby, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, the things that we say to women in this position are enough to send anybody running for the hills, like
Yeah, for
this
sure.
idea, yeah, the idea that you will lose all agency over what you do with your time and your
Yes.
body, and
Yeah.
that your life will change so far from how it's been for years and you won't recognize it anymore. Like,
Mhm.
that is such a horrible prospect. Who wants that? Like, no.
Exactly.
When we choose to have children, it's because we want to add something to our lives, not because we want to set a bomb off in our existing one and
Yes.
start from scratch. So this is a really common one that I see with yours, and it's not something that people talk about very often. So often it takes a little bit of digging.
No, it's so taboo, isn't it? And they don't even know how many other women feel exactly the same way. And they talk to you as if they have a dirty secret to tell you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's as though they can't admit to feeling like this, because if they do, that somehow negates their desire for a baby.
Exactly. That they're already a bad mother because there might be a part of them that isn't sure about wanting the kid. And I'll be completely honest, I really thought about whether Yurun and I should even try for a baby, because I have this clinic. I have a lot of responsibility, and I didn't know what it was going to look like being pregnant and maternity leave, and later on, I don't know what kind of kid I'm going to have. Will I still be able to do this work? So, I mean, it is so much more common than most people think.
Definitely, yeah, really, really, really common. So in terms of, if this is a particular fear of yours, there's a few things that you can do. And the first thing that I would recommend is to look into different styles of parenting, because the biggest fear with this is that once you have a baby, your life will have to change beyond recognition.
Hmm.
The key here is to find yourself in a place where you understand that doesn't have to be so. So, for example, one of my favourite ones is a book called The Continuing Concept by a lady called Jean Lee. And this is, Jean Liedloff went into the jungle and lived with some tribes for a period of time, way back in 1960s, I think this was. And she wrote a book of her observations on seeing this tribe, basically. And she talks about how babies weren't given special treatment in the way that we do generally in the Western world.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, they didn't have pushchairs, and they didn't have cots, and they didn't have special pots of baby food. You know, babies were welcomed into the tribe. They were loved and adored and made to feel like they really had a strong place in their families and their broader community. But actually, they were expected to go along with the rest of the tribe. So they did a lot more baby wearing. You know, they would use slings and carriers to take their children about with them. They would co-sleep, they would breastfeed, and their children were expected to go along with what the rest of the tribe or the family was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this can be really useful. Like, if you have some kind of career or lifestyle, which means that you don't have the kind of routine that would fit with baby's got to be bathed every night at 6 o'clock and into bed by 6:30,
Mm-hmm.
and then we do lullabies until 7, and then that's it until 12 hours later. If you're the kind of person that perhaps has a very active evening schedule, you know, maybe you're involved in some kind of industry, which means that most of your work is in the evening. The continuing concept way of parenting works very well with that. It's very flexible to fit around what the rest of the family is doing.
Yeah.
So it can be really good to read up on these other styles and know that you don't have to follow a Gina Ford system whereby your day is so micromanaged
Right.
that you can't have any other thing going on in your life whilst you have a young baby.
It makes society boring too. We need more parents like you that want to parent in a different way, right?
Yeah. But just knowing that there are options
Yeah.
can help you to get over that fear that your life is going to become so different.
I think that will already take away a lot of the mommy guilt that we all have anyway. Because if you've already decided in advance, actually, I'm not going to do the whole lullaby sleeping routine kind of thing, but Friday mornings, it's my kid and me, for example. I think that will prevent you having a lot of guilt later on because you've made those decisions very consciously in advance.
Yes, definitely. And it also means that you're a little bit more prepared. You know, you're not just going into this with this very fixed idea of what it's going to be.
Yes.
Because often, if you do that, then if you get a baby that doesn't fit that routine,
Right.
you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And you're not. Like, trust me, babies are all as different as adults are.
Exactly.
Some will go off and just sleep beautifully, and others will not sleep for anything. And it won't matter what you do,
Nope.
you know, they'll catnap.
Nope.
It won't last. By the way, if you get a baby like that, it doesn't last. They will sleep.
Absolutely. And then we've talked about this topic in the past as well, how communicating with your partner is so incredibly important, right? And that talking to your partner about these fears is important as well, I think. Because your partner might actually say, oh, yeah, but that's fine. We're not going to be that way. We're going to do it like this and this. Or they may say, oh, actually, I had been thinking about working a day less in the week. Fear, often when you bring it to light, it starts to dissipate. The more you keep it in, you need to bring it out into the light. And often I want to just cuddle these women that say these kind of things, because I think they're so clever, because they actually think about what things could be like potentially. They don't just focus on, I want a baby and I want this pink little pushchair and have bows, and they actually think about what life is gonna realistically be. So I think if you have these type of fears, you are actually on the right track. But just don't let them rule you, and work with it. And as far as it comes to the fears that you mentioned in the beginning, like maybe there was trauma in the past, again, homeopathic remedies are so important. And reading books maybe about unassisted childbirth, for example, like childbirth, there's so many different ways. Breastfeeding, there are so many different ways, or like nursing in general. Just see what suits you, and be an advocate for your own health, your emotional health, your family. Whether that's now or in the future, you're a mom already. Whether you have a kid or not, you're a mom already.
And it's the other thing is often there can be this fear that the relationship will be affected. So what we just talked about generally or more frequently applies to mothers, because mothers are the ones who are expected to give up more of their life when baby arrives. So it's mothers that have a longer period of maternity leave, for example. But there can often also be a fear on both sides, both male and female, that their relationship will change and that they will perhaps not get to spend so much time together, or maybe that they'll become less important to each other because they'll be available. Absolutely, yeah, that the strain will be too great. That if you get a baby that's got colic, for example, maybe you'll both end up hating each other because you're so tired. You know, like there's all those kind of fears are at least improved by good communication with your partner. Because the worst thing is to feel as though you're in a relationship but completely alone. And what you really want to do is strengthen those bonds and those channels before you get to the point of having difficult conversations when you've got a screaming baby, for example. You want to know that you've already got a system in place where you can communicate well with your partner. So if you're not yet pregnant or you're in the stages of pregnancy, now is a brilliant time to really shore up those foundations. And one of the best ways to do that is improve the communication between you.
Absolutely. And then to close off the fear topic, we won't go into this too deeply, but I noticed that there's also fear when it comes to resources, that and this is a fear that often affects prospective dads because they feel responsible for taking care of the family. And if they don't actually carry that burden, then the women will be scared. Like, well, what if I'm pregnant and I can't work, or I have the baby and I can't work as much? Will he actually pull his weight? But also the guys that are scared that they won't be able to provide if there's a baby or another baby. And this is also really important to talk about and communicate about and set up a plan. Instead of just feeling scared in your head, just sit down and have a plan. Have a strategy.
Yeah, and a strategy, all that a strategy is some kind of thought through. It doesn't even have to be written down, but it's that you've stopped for a minute and thought through, what do we want? What challenges and obstacles might we come across on our way towards that? And what can we put in place beforehand to deal with those if they do occur? So this doesn't have to be a really extensive written document. That's not what we're talking about. But it is about saying, okay, I recognise that my partner is worried about the cost of pushchair, cot, whatever else. So let's work out a plan to make sure that this isn't going to be a problem. Or I understand that there might be concerns about my work. How do I set this up so that I can have maternity leave without worrying that I'll lose my job as a result? All of these things, there are things that you can do, A, to anticipate them, and B, to put things in place beforehand so that you're not blindsided by them if they do happen. And that's all that a strategy is. It's just about thinking it through and putting systems in place to deal with it in a smoother way.
Now you see how ongoing fears can really be messing with your fertility, but that addressing them can also open you up to receive that baby. I've mentioned this in the videos before, but I can really recommend Helen's course to help you zoom in on any emotional or practical fertility blocks that you are dealing with right now and tackling them hands-on. A great place to start is also her free resilience challenge. If you haven't checked that out yet, I really think that every woman that is trying to conceive should be doing this challenge, and you have no excuse. You can do it from home. It is completely free. So what are you waiting for? Go and click on that sign up link in the description down below. As I said, if you haven't seen the previous 2 videos yet, make sure to click on the playlist on your screen right now. And if you are interested in my fertility videos, but you haven't subscribed yet, then this is your chance to go and click on that subscribe button under this video as well. I bring out new videos every Thursday. So in the meantime, see you in the next video. Bye!